Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Giridhari, Radhe. Yo Radha Giridhari Radhe Jayo Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Anitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudev Jaya Gurudev. Hare Krishna Prabhujis and Matajis. Hope we are all back from the spiritual retreat in Rotorua. We are back to our normal morning classes. So these accept my humble obeisances to all Vaishnava and Vaishnavis. Manchakalpatarvishya Kripa Sindhu Vichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. We'll start from Prabhupada Lilamrita. So anyone can unmute their mic and can read from Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter 8. Anyone would like to read?
I can start. Okay, yeah, you can start.
Prabhuji, you can start in that case.
Okay, I'll read first the first paragraph. I'll read. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Shira Lilamrita, Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter 8. We were not uncomfortable together, but as business would have it, if the bills were standing for a long time, then I would ask him if I could do something about it. He would say, "Don't worry. You can be sure that your money is coming." I never asked him where his funds were coming from because I felt that it was his personal matter. But it was embarrassing for him when he could not pay. So I never tried to embarrass him. He was concerned that if he didn't have money, how could he print the paper? And he definitely wanted to run that paper. Yeah, you can do the next one, Prabhu.
Prabhu, please continue.
Oh, continue? Okay. After picking up the copies from printer, Abhay would walk around the city selling them. He would take a seat at a tea stand. And when someone sat beside him, Abhay would please ask him to please take a copy of Back to Godhead. He also went to the homes and offices of people who had already donated or agreed to see him, and he sought out new contacts sometimes on recommendation or sometimes by going uninvited, wherever he could find a potential reader. When he delivered copies to regular donors, he would discuss the previous issue's philosophy with them and sometimes write articles on topics that they requested. Our esteemed friend, Sri Bishan Prasad Maheshwari, one of the learned advocates of the Supreme Court, has requested us to write something on the principle of fruitive action with special reference to vices and its potency. Often, donors agreed to see him not out of so much genuine interest or affection as out of a sense of obligation. In the traditional Hindu piety, they felt obliged to see the sadhu, take his paper, and even think well of him, but not necessarily to read his newspaper. Once, when Abhay was approaching a well-to-do house, the owner came to the second floor veranda and shouted, "Go away, we don't want you here." Thank you, Prabhu.
Anyone else?
Yeah, anyone else?
Abhay, responding to the resistance, polite and impolite, that he met while sailing back to Godhead, wrote an article, "No Time, a Choice, a Chronic Disease of Common Man," for the March 16 edition. When he approached some gentleman and requested him to become a reader back to Godhead, sometimes we were replied with the word "no time." They say that they were too busy in earning money for maintaining the body and soul together. But when we ask them, "What do you mean by the soul?" they have nothing to reply. Dr. Meghnad Shah, a great scientist, was busily going to a meeting of the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, while going in his car on the road, he died and could not ask death to wait because he had no time at that moment. Dr. Ansari, the great Congress leader, while dying in a moving train on his way to home, said that he was himself a medical team and almost all his family men were so, but death is so cruel that he was dying without any medical treatment. Therefore, death has been described in the Bhagavad as the indefatigable. Death is awaiting everyone, although everybody thinks that he may not die. There is life after death. The busy man should try to know this also as to whether he is going. The life is but a spot in his longest sojourn, and a sane person should not be busy with the spot only. Hare Krishna.
Someone else, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vijay. Please go ahead.
Nobody says that the body should not be maintained, but everybody should know from Bhagavad Gita that the body is the outward dress and the soul is the real person who puts on the dress. So, if the dress is taken care of only without any care of the real person, it is the sheer foolishness and waste of time. You want to carry out for that?
Yes, Prabhuji, the whole page.
Okay. Avai was an unusual newspaper vendor. He did not loudly hawk his paper on the street or sell it from a newsstand. He approached individuals quietly as they sat to drink tea, or he would call on acquaintances in their offices or places of business. Taking a copy from the stack, he carried underneath his arm. He would present what appeared to be an ordinary tabloid newspaper with bold black headlines across the front page. But what odd headlines, the lowest of the mankind. Philosophical problems within social awareness, sufferings of humanity, the pure consciousness of nationalism. Anyone could tell at a glance that this is no ordinary newspaper. Avai would say something to try to convince them to take it away anyway before they said no time. On behalf of his spiritual master and the previous Vaishnava authorities, he was playing a role, the newspaper salesman, a smiling demeanor, a gentlemanly invitation. No, it was not an ordinary newspaper, but they would find it interesting, and it cost only 6 paisa. Thus, he was extending the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, handing out the truth of the Vedas in the easy-to-take form of a newspaper. Despite his desperate poverty and the urgency of this message, his writing was never shrill, strident, or fanatical. He wrote expecting to find his reader prepared to hear sound philosophy and always willing to accept the truth, especially when he presented logically and relevantly and supported by the authoritative Vedic literature. Although experience on the streets of Delhi had shown him that people were shallow, distracted, and uninterested in self-realization, he knew that most people, at least at some time in their lives, pondered the crucial themes of philosophy, whether God exists, whether he is a person, why there is suffering. So, Abhay appealed to their higher sentiments. That's it.
Just one last paragraph, Babaji.
Okay.
After that, we're going to finish.
Spring of 1956 brought visits from US Secretary of State, Dulles, and a few days later, Lord Mountbatten, the former Governor General of India, who were greeted at the airport by thousands. Then came the celebration of the one sacred day of Holi, when urchins spray all passers-by with colored dyes. Prime Minister Nehru toured the Delhi slums, expressing disgust at the prevailing condition. He announced India's intention to develop atomic energy, stretching its peaceful uses. The weather warmed. A border clash began between India and Pakistan. Delhi railway workers went on strike. Meanwhile, Abhay continued to preach.
Jai, Shila, Jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll start with our invocation prayers. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jnanam Udaryate Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttame Shloke Bhaktir Bhavete Neshtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 4, Canto 4, chapter 22, shloka number 10. And the shloka is Adhanam api te dhanya sadhavo graha medina yad graha ahar vayam ambhu tarna bhumi ishvara varaha. Adhana api te dhanya sadhavo graha medina yad graha hai ahar vayambhu tarna bhumi ishvara varaha. Adana api te dhanya sadhavo graha medina yad graha ahar vayambhu tarna bhumi ishvara varaha. Will anyone like to try the shloka, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Babaji. Please go ahead.
Adana pite dhyanya sadhavo griha medina yad griha hi arha varyambhu tina bhumi sharavaraha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Babaji. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am also trying.
Please go ahead, Babaji.
Adhuna pite dhanna sadhavo griha medinaha yad griha yarha varyambhu trina bhumi ishvara vara. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna
Hare-
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Adhunayopi te dhanyaha sadhavo griha medinaha yad griha yarha varyambhu trina bhumeshwara varaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone? Okay, we'll go by word translation, synonyms. Sorry, word by word synonyms. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Adhana, not very rich. Api, although. They, dhanya, glorious. Sadhva, saintly persons. Graha medina, person who are attached to family life. Yat graha, whose house. He certainly. Arha, uh, Arhavarya, the most worshipable. Ambu, water. Tana, grass. Bhumi, land. Ishvaraha, the master. Avraha, servant. The translation. Srila Prabhupada. Translation. A person who is not very rich and is attached to family life becomes highly glorified when saintly persons are present in his home. The master and the servant who are engaged in offering the exalted visitor water, a sitting place, a paraphernalia for reception are glorified, and the house itself is also glorified. Would someone like to read the purport?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Please go ahead, Mataji.
Materially, if a man is not very rich, he is not glorious. And spiritually, if a man is too attached to family life, he is also not glorious. But saintly persons are quite ready to visit the house of a poor man or a man who is attached to material family life. When this happens, the owner of the house and his servants are glorified because they offer water for washing the feet of a saintly person, sitting places, and other things to receive him. The conclusion is that if a saintly person goes to the house of even an unimportant man, such a person becomes glorious by his blessings. It is therefore the Vedic system that a householder invite a saintly person in his home to receive his blessings. This system is still current in India, and therefore saintly persons, wherever they go, are hosted by the householders, who in turn get an opportunity to receive transcendental knowledge. It is the duty of a sannyasi, therefore, to travel everywhere just to favor the householders who are generally ignorant of the values of spiritual life. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
It may be argued that all householders are not very rich and that one cannot receive great saintly persons or preachers because they are always accompanied by their disciples. If a householder is to receive a saintly person, he has to receive his entourage also. It is said in the Shastras that Durvasa Muni was always accompanied by 60,000 disciples, and that if there was a little discrepancy in their reception, he would be very angry and would sometimes curse the host. The fact is that every householder, regardless of his position or economic condition, can at least receive saintly guests with great devotion and offer them drinking water, for drinking water is available always. In India, the custom is that even an ordinary person is offered a glass of water if he suddenly visits, and one cannot offer him foodstuff. If there is no water, then one can offer a sitting place, even if it is on straw mats. And if one has no straw mat, he can immediately cleanse the ground and ask the guests to sit there. Supposing that a householder cannot even do that, then with folded hands, he can simply receive the guest, saying, "Welcome." And if he cannot do that, then he should feel very sorry for his poor condition and shed tears and simply offer obeisances with his whole family, wife and children. In this way, he can satisfy any guest, even if the guest is a saintly person or a king.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. We'll start with our invocation prayer. Om Ajnana Tirvindasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ulmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamischa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Tadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitanvischa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishibhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. So we are reading from chapter 24, 22:10, and the shloka is Adhana api te dhanya sadhvo graha medina yad graha hi arha vyarambu trana bhumi ishvara avraha. So we'll just go a little bit background as to what has happened in the previous, just a re-encapsulation as to what has happened in the previous shlokas, in the previous chapter. So in the previous chapter, we have heard that, Lord Vishnu came in the yajna of Prithu Maharaj. And when he came, Prithu Maharaj had a desire, had wanted benediction, that he wanted to serve the devotees of the Lord. He wanted to associate with the devotees of the Lord, so that he can get self-realized and he can go home back to Godhead. So we see earlier in this chapter that, chapter 22, that how the four Kumaras, who was as brilliant as sun, arrived at the ceremony. And when the king and his associates saw these four Kumaras, who were like as bright as sun in the earlier verse, that they got up from their seat, and they knew that they have descended from the sky. They are not an ordinary person. So they immediately got up from their seat, asked them to sit down, and wash their feet, offer them a golden throne. And not only that, after that, Prithu Maharaj started glorifying the four Kumaras. That you are so exalted. You have been traveling around the whole universe, doing the prachar and achar. And it also says that, wherever the saintly person goes, they carry Krishna in their heart. That's called as Tirthani Kurvanti, Tirtha Kurvanti Tirthani. That it's that the devotees, the saintly person is like a walking pilgrimage. They are like a holy place personified, basically, because they carry Supreme Personality Godhead in their heart. And they always turn any place into a pilgrimage. And you can see that that not only the four Kumaras there was in the different yugas, but if you see Srila Prabhupada and all the other sannyasis, what they have done, they are not ordinary persons. If you see any sannyasis nowadays, they are not ordinary person. They have given up so many things. It's not ordinary to leave a single, we have seen in India, especially, we're talking about in India, it's really difficult for a householder to leave even a cup of tea. They have left so many things for what? So that they can get self-realized and they can give the same thing to the general public. So here we will see that in this shloka, in today's shloka, we'll hear how to receive this saintly person when they try to visit an household, family, or to your house. So how we can learn this is given by Prithu Maharaj. So first, we just like to try to understand what is the word Atithi means. Do you know? Anyone knows what the word Atithi means? Anyone can unmute their mic and just feel free.
Atithi means there is no time, anytime.
Anytime, yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Without any information, without any intent.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That's absolutely right. So Tithi, basically, when we see that, in Ekadashi, when we break the fast, there has to be some Tithis, and if you look at any lunar calendar, we look at the Tithis, we work on Tithis, on this Tithi that happened, Diwali, like, for example, Diwali, Janmashtami, all these things never comes on the same day. They totally depends on the Tithis. So Tithi means a particular time. And Atithi means without any particular time or without any invitation. So that's Atithi means the person who comes to your place without any invitation and any particular time. So that's called Atithi. So I still remember when we were in school, we used, before our prayer used to start, we used to say four things, bhavas, four Devo bhavas. So first was Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, Guru Deva Bhava, and the last is Atithi Deva Bhava. That means Matru is mother, Pitru is father, Guru is your spiritual master or your guru, and Atithi is a guest. And Deva Bhava means they are equivalent to God. So when these four things we are saying that these four personalities are equivalent to God, and when they come, we should respect them as if the saintly person has come to your place, and you should respect them. So the Atithi word refers to as one who comes without an invitation. Now there are two type of guests, basically, right? We know there are two type of guests. So one is one which we have already planned. We have got so much of social media nowadays. Facebook, WhatsApp, Insta, and whatnot. So we have a plan to write, Prabhuji, Mataji, we are free over this weekend. Please come. We'll have prasadam and we'll have some chanting, blah blah blah. So it's already there. So there's no surprise factor. So that person is gonna come. That person's like, say for example, pav bhaji or subject. So you've already got everything planned. So there's no surprise factor in that. So this is like an invite. This is already invited guest. So when you open the door, you know who's on the other side of the door. And the second person is called as uninvited guest, which is Atithi. But nowadays, people have become so smart. I'm talking about generally in India, not here in New Zealand or in Auckland or Hamilton, but I'm talking generally in India. So nowadays, people have become very smart. They have installed that, the what do you call the door weaver. So people see from inside the house who is on the other side, and they make the decision accordingly. So if they see someone is coming without your invitation on a odd time, they will look at the key door viewer, and generally they will say, right, I'm not here. I will not open the door. And if you are there, they have seen the car is there, the scooter is there outside the house, the Prabhuji will be here. Then they will ask someone else, please can you go and tell them that I'm not here or I'm feeling sick. Especially when they see that person on the other side of the door is a person wearing an orange dress and having a big tilak on the head, definitely they're not going to open the door. They will think, oh, this guy has come again, he's asked for donation and all that, selling books and all that. Forget it. We don't want to open this at all, So that's what happens, especially in India. We have heard in the previous chapter, because of this curse of Indra, that people have started, taking sadhus as, a person who is troublesome, they are always dongi babas, basically. So we can see that, especially people have started installing the door viewer nowadays, so they can, keep the uninvited guest outside the house. But on the other side, the uninvited guest, when you open the door, the surprise factor, that is Atithi. And how to honor these guests is taught by Prithu Maharaj. So when Atithi comes, generally it says from the purport that we generally offer them three things. It says from the purport. The first thing is we offer them a visitor, a water, a sitting place, and a paraphernalia for reception. Like, the seat, a warm welcome, a glass of water. That's basic. So by doing this, not only the owner and the servant of the house, but also the house get purified. We see the sannyasis, they visit from places to places. And anyone can unmute their voice, unmute their mic and just tell me why sannyasis keep on moving from places to places. Anyone?
To distribute their mercy so that people can be elevated from the material stage to higher stage.
Very correct, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. So sannyasis visit from place to place to uplift the people who are in this material pool, to give them God realization. So Srila Prabhupada would have been here, we wouldn't have been doing this Bhagavatam class this morning. It's here. He especially descended. He especially came from Golok Dham to uplift all of us, to give the love of Godhead, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has started. He was here to give the same thing to us. So it says in the Shastras that the time that sannyasi should stay in one place is until the cows milk. That's the basically time frame of a sannyasi should visit one place. You should not get attached to that place. That's why it says until the cows get milk, there's a time duration a sannyasi should visit at one place. So you can see that sannyasi is like a mobile, as we heard earlier, like a mobile pilgrimage. It also says there are many references where it says, that the sannyasis or the sadhu person, saintly person, get his Govinda in their heart. It says, "Tumhara hriday sada Govinda Vishram." It says that, that Tumhara hriday sada Govinda Vishram. Your heart is the place where Govind always resides. And wherever the sannyasi or sadhu goes, regardless whether Govinda wants or not want to come, he has to come, because Govinda is in the heart of a sadhu. So that is the reason why when a sannyasis come and visit, the places like when we have seen all the sannyasis come and visit in Auckland, there's so many sadhus and sannyasis comes. A sadhu, I mean to say, sadhu are different than sannyas. Sannyas is the one who has taken the sannyas ashram, and sadhus couldn't be anyone. Sadhu are the person who are more exalted, who again have God realization. They are sadhus. So we can see that when these people come, we need to invite them at our home. And just because we have earlier heard that from Prithumar and the translation, that when we invite them at home, what happens? We serve them, right? And when we serve them, not only I'm serving, I will include my kids, my wife. If they are not well, I include my neighbors. Can you come and wash their feet? So they will be involved in the seva. And what happens? Not only me, neighbors, but the house also get purified. That's the reason why we should always ask the sadhus and sannyasis to come to our place. And it also says that, that is the duty of a grastha, the people who are in the grastha ashram, to take care of brahmachari and sannyasis. And when this reciprocation happens, when we invite the sadhus, there's a duty of sadhus as well. It says in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is very nicely right. It is a duty of a sannyasi. So this is the duty of a grastha. When the sannyasi or sadhu comes to their place, what they do, they generally invite them. They generally wash their feet. They offer them food. They offer them donation, whatever they can do. But in return, sadhu has to do something as well. What does sadhu do? Sadhu says in the report, in the first paragraph, last line, it is a duty of a sannyasi, therefore, to travel everywhere, just to favor the householder who are generally ignorant for the value of spiritual life. So it is stated, it is seen that people who are very poor is because of the past karmas. So they are not that glorified. And also people who are too much attached to the family life, grahamedi, basically, they are also not glorified. But if a sadhu goes to these places, what happens? They get glorified. The house become glorified. The person get glorified. Because the sadhu also like to go to these places. If there's a very, very nice reason, Srila Prabhupada is nice in the very first line explains in the purport, that if a man is not very rich, he is not glorious. And spiritually, if a man is too attached to family, he is also not glorious. But saintly person are quite ready to visit these houses. Why? Because, anyone like to guess why they want to go to these people houses? Anyone can unmute their mic.
To uplift them, Prabhuji, for their benefit.
Yes. Very good, Mataji. Anyone else? Any other reason?
To uplift their consciousness, the state they are living in. So
Yes.
by his presence, the upliftment of consciousness
Will be there.
Yeah.
Very nice, Prabhuji. Anyone else like to try? It says, if a man is not very rich, he is not glorious and spiritually. And if a man is too attached to the family life, he is not glorious as well. But saintly person are quite ready to visit the houses of a poor man or a man who is attached to a material family life. So if you see the fact, if he's trying to go to a person who's very rich, what will happen? If a sadhu is trying to go to a very rich person, what will happen? to say, for example, like how we had just read in in Prabhupada Lilamrita, that how Srila Prabhupada used to sell books, back to God at Mex, and he used to visit door to door, sometime for donation, sometime for paper, to get some, so that he can reprinting the books. So if someone comes to a very businessman, what will happen? He has to do 3 or 4 rounds, going forwards and backwards. They have to take an appointment. Sometimes he's busy, sometimes he's doing that. But if you see a normal person, he is, and the most important thing is the rich person is too time consuming for a sadhu. And the one big disadvantage of that is that rich person is getting a baggage. He's getting 3 baggages with him, which is ego, pride, and enviousness. So when these 3 qualities are there, for that person to receive a sadhu is practically not possible. If someone says, I'm a CEO of a blah, blah, blah company, I'm a CFO, I'm a managing director, I'm a vice president, I'm this and that, and people will see me falling down at the lotus at the feet of a person who is wearing an orange dress, they will laugh at me, There's ego coming in. And sometimes they think I'm such a high, I'm such a at a very high position. Why should I go to his why should I bend down and just take his mercy? That's his pride. And enviousness is also there at the same time. When pride and ego comes, enviousness by default is a byproduct. That's why these sadhu people like to go to an ordinary person, a poor person, because poor person doesn't have any of these things. There's no ego, no pride, no enviousness. Isse kya kharabi uski? So sadhu likes to visit these places, and as these people are very easily approachable. And when a sadhu person goes there, it says on the purport that one should offer them water, wash their feet, and sprinkle on their head. That is the process when we welcome a sadhu or sannyasi. We have seen that, that when a sannyasis come, we have seen many times in Auckland, and that, when sadhu comes, people generally wash their lotus feet. So what happened when we wash the lotus feet of a pure devotee? We'll discuss in the next shloka. Can anyone read the shloka as well as the translation?
Bhakta pada dhuli yara, bhakta pada jala, bhakta bhukta avashesha, tina mahabala. Translation: the dust of the feet of the devotee, the water that has washed the feet of the devotee, and the remnants of the food left by the devotee are 3 very powerful substances.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bhakta pada dhuli, ara bhakta pada jala, bhakta bhukta avashesha, tina mahabala. So, what is bhakta pada dhuli is the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee. I'm not talking about the Lord here, about the devotee. Bhakta. Bhakta pada jala, the water that has washed the feet of the devotees. That's also known as Charnamrita. And the third is Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha, the remnants, food eaten by a devotee. And if we take all these 3 things, what happens? Tina Mahabala. They are the most powerful things. So why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying this? These things are very, very powerful. What do we get when we do all these things? Anyone can unmute their mic and tell. What do we get if we do all these 3 things?
Will we get their mercy in that way?
Spot on, Prabhuji. Perfectly fine. We get their mercy. So if and what happens when we get their mercy? It advances us in advancements in Krishna consciousness, helps in a spiritual progress. In nectar of devotion, there are 3 ways of perfection. There are 3 ways of perfection in bhakti. What are they called? Sadhana Siddha, Nitya Siddha, and Kripa Siddha. Right? Sadhana Siddha was perfection attained by executing the devotional service of the Lord, following the rules and regulations. That's called as Sadhana Siddha. Nitya Siddha is what? Perfection attained by mercy. Synthesis is external perfection attained by never forgetting Krishna. Nitya Siddha. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Nitya Siddha. And Kripa Siddha is perfection attained by mercy of the spiritual master or other Vaishnavas. Kripa Siddha. And Kaviraj Goswami emphasized Kripa Siddha, perfection by the mercy of the superior authorities. That's very, very important. So if we are doing sadhana bhakti, by alone doing sadhana bhakti is not sufficient. We need to have a mercy of Guru and Krishna. Without mercy, there's no progress. So mercy has to be there. And especially Charnamrita is the real nectar. You know, Charnamrita is the real nectar. It's not an ordinary water. We generally see it's just pani hai. It's just when we're washing the feet of a sannyasi, we think it's just an ordinary water, but that's not the ordinary water. We should take a sip and sprinkle on our head. That is called Charnamrita. We have seen videos of devotees, tussle for each other, to get one drop of Srila Prabhupada Charnamrita. How that's what devotee does when they say a saintly person is Charnamrita of his devotee. So we have seen that the Bhakta Pada Dholi, the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee. Have you seen Krishna getting the dust of the bhaktas? Do anyone remember how Krishna got the dust of the devotees on his head? Anyone can unmute their mic.
Sudama.
Sudama.
That was the second one, Charnamrita. Dust of the devotees on his head. You remember the story when Krishna was having a headache?
Gopis.
Hare
Krishna.
Yes. You remember that story? Remember that when Krishna was having a headache and Narad Muni was passing by and he said, "Oh Krishna, how are you doing?" And Krishna said, "I'm having a very bad headache. Can you please get me your dust of your lotus feet?" And Narad Muni said, "No. You're Krishna. I will get pap and this and that." Then he said, "Oh, can you get me the dust of the devotees?" He did the whole Brahman of all three planetary system, but he can't find anyone. And he went to Krishna and Krishna said, "Have you been to Vrindavan?" Narad Muni. He said, "No." So go and ask them if they have got some dust of their lotus feet. And Narad Muni went there, and all the gopis were there. And they said, "What happened?" Narad Muni said, "Krishna is having a headache." And he said that he wants the dust of the Brajvasis. Oh, take as much as. So Narad Muni asked, don't you feel scared that, you will go to hell because you're giving your feet, your dust, because Krishna going to put on his head, you will have to go in hell. And the Gopi says, doesn't matter. We don't care about the end result. Krishna headache should be gone. That's our main purpose, So that should be the mood. Krishna has himself taken the dust of his devotees. And also, if you see that there's a nice photograph where Krishna is holding the Paduka of Nanda Maharaj. He was also a devotee, Nanda Maharaj. And you can see that Krishna is taking the Padukas on his head and is getting the dust of Nanda Maharaj on his head. There was the dust of the devotee, dust of lotus feet of the devotee. The second is Bhakta Pada Jala. Second is Charnamrita. We have already said the answer, which is Sudama. So Krishna, when Sudama came to his palace, what did Krishna do? Exactly what Prithu Maharaj has done. He stood up. He went to the yes. So as soon as he came to know Sudama is on the door, Krishna wasn't. Again, Krishna knows everything, but he just got up from his throne, ran to the door, invited him, Sudama, make him sit on his throne and start washing his feet. And that's how Krishna did the Charnamrita, Abhishek of his lotus feet of his devotees. And the last is Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha, the remnants food eaten by a devotee. Who did that? Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha.
When Krishna has taken it from his friends, well,
Yes. And second one, big example.
Also,
Narad
Muni, yes. And the third one, which is done by the personality of Godhead himself, apart from Gopas, in all the ones. We have heard the story of Shabari. She was eating the what you call bear, right? She was eating half, keeping and Lord Ram eat that very nicely. He didn't discriminate that's eaten by a person. No, he's a devotee of the Lord, and he ate Lord Ram honored those bear. So if you see, Lord himself has done all these three things. Mahabala, Lord himself has done that. this is a lesson for us that when a devotee comes, a sannyasis come, we should do all these three things. But how, it may be asked the question that how can we get the dhuli of a sannyasi at our home? And when any clues how we can get the dust of uh, a dhuli of a pure devotee? How we can do that? If we're talking about practical life now,
Instructions of the devotees, Prabhu.
instructions of the devotees, yes. But if we want to have the dust, lotus dust of the like how we were in the seminar, and Prahlad Maharaj, Shri Prahlad Prabhu and Kala Prabhu was telling about there was a sannyasi, and it was big announcement happened that no one should touch his feet, and they look at each other, and they both of them went and touched the feet. But it generally says we should not touch the feet of a sadhu or a sannyasi. But if they want to, how we can get the dhuli on our head? Any clues? How we can get the lotus, the dust, the raja on our head? Anyone can unmute their mic, and if they want, they can speak. How we can get the dust of exalted devotees or sannyasis on our head?
By paying obeisances, dandavats.
Very correct, Mataji. It's very difficult to get the dust of the dust from the lotus feet of a devotee or sannyasi or a sadhu. But if you see, if we go in a dham, if we go in a temple, the first thing that we do is doing the obeisances. So definitely they would have walked. Not only the sadhu, the other devotees have walked from there. You will get that raj, a small fragmental part, on your head. And that's why we should pay Dandvat Pranam. And when we go to Holy Dham like Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, we should just do the Dandvat Pranam so you can get one speck of minute macroscopic particle, on our head. We will be blessed. That's why if you see in Vrindavan, the people go and do the, they roll over the dust of Raja in Vrindavan. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada has to say for the mercy of the devotees. Can anyone please read this?
The first duty is to satisfy the spiritual master who can arrange for the Lord's mercy. A common man must first begin to serve the spiritual master or the devotee. Then, through the mercy of the devotee, the Lord will be satisfied. Unless one receives the dust of a devotee's lotus feet on one's head, there is no possibility of advancement. Unless one approaches a pure devotee, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So you can see Srila Prabhupada very, 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 very clearly says, without, it says where it says, unless one receives the dust of the devotee's lotus feet on one side, there is no possibility of advancement. Very, very clear. No possibility of advancement. So if we want to advance ourselves, we need to get the raj of the lotus feet of the devotees. And by doing that, what will happen? The mercy flows from Guru, from Krishna. It just flows. It becomes quite easy. So that's what Srila Prabhupada has to say. But if we see, if the Atithi is there on your door and we don't respect, we don't open the door, what does Shastra says about this? So if we turn away the Atithi from our home, what is the house like? Let's see. Can anyone read the shloka as well as the translation?
Griheshu eshu atitiyo na archita shalilairapi yadi niryanti te nunam perur aja grihopamaha. Translation: homes from which guests go away without having been received, even with an offering of little water, are like those holes in the field, which are the homes of jackals. Such a beautiful.
It's amazing. So you can see, if you see in India, they are like small holes in a field, right? And those fields are like a small snake or rats or mice or whatever it is. But there's a big hole, and no one would like to reside in that hole because it's very open. It's not a good thing to stay in this open. That's like home of a jackal, and jackal is not considered as good. When they howl at night, it's not considered good. So it says we should not even turn away anyone without even water is available in anyone's house. At least we can give water. It's a very nice incident. I remember it was a discussion happening between the devotees, and all of a sudden, Srila Prabhupada was sitting, and I think Dr. Mishra came, and they had a very good time. Srila Prabhupada offered him food. He asked his devotees to offer him food, water. They sat, they talked, and after half an hour, 1 hour, Dr. Mishra went to his place. And the devotees came to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, what happened? Um, Dr. Mishra is a Mayavadi. Why you were talking with him? Why? And it's not good. So he wanted to know why Srila Prabhupada was engaging in the Mayavadi. So Srila Prabhupada very nicely answered that to the devotee said, definitely you're right. He's Mayavadi. We may have religious difference, but we don't have any cultural difference. So culture-wise, we should be respecting a person, whoever comes to your door. If you look at the initial stage of Srimad Bhagavatam, what happened? Parikshit Maharaj came to the house of a saint, a sadhu, and he's a king of the whole entire Bhumi earth, Bharatvarsh. And what happened? He was not even asked a glass of water. And the whole thing started, he got upset. He put a snake on his neck, and the Shringi then cursed him, and the things happened. So that's the basic etiquette of a person. If someone is coming to your door, at least grab him a glass of water. Even in India, even in today's date, even if you see anyone comes, at least we give them a glass of water. So that's the basic etiquette. So from this wonderful shloka, we can read, we can understand when a saintly person comes, how we should treat them, and what benefit we will get when we try to when we try to please the saintly person. Because they are saintly, they have got Govind in their heart. They will give the same result, even if you're serving Krishna or the devotee of the Lord, will get the same benefit. So it's because Krishna is not appreciable that easily, but the devotees are. So we should always try to invite the devotees in our home, exalted devotees, wash their lotus feet, offer them prasadam, give them a place when they come. That's the basic etiquette. So we'll just like to rest the class here. If you got any questions or any add-ons, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Such a beautiful text and such beautiful explanation. You just revived our basic culture, Indian culture we used to follow. Of course, nowadays we have forgotten all this, but the very basic and very important message for all of us who are in this line, how to deal with the sadhus. Not only sadhus, even the uninvited people who will say Atiti. It's very, very important because everybody has got some blessing, and that blessing is shared when we accept them through at least with minimum of water or welcoming by folding hands. So that transfer of mercy, transfer of goodness changes our life, and that is the message Ritu Maharaj is giving us. It's not an ordinary thing, it's very, 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 very powerful message. Only by simply attending the guest, what sort of benefit could be received. And this is the whole text talks about it. Thank you so much. You so nicely explained with examples to revitalize our old memories. And this is very, very important. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Such a nice exposition of this verse, so much unpacking, so many things to learn. And I was just wondering, the epitome of sannyasi, especially visiting here in Auckland, is His Holiness Krishna Maharaj. He goes home to home, and he's very open. He just let everybody wash his feet. It's so open, open to question. Just by doing this, he's blessing so many devotees.
Absolutely.
When you were giving a class, I was just wondering, and we can do all these three things of our water, sitting place, Chanamita, and we are Prasadam, Mahaprasad from his plate. Just spreading mercy. This is the Vaishnava etiquette, and we are. He gave an opportunity to us to revisit our culture. We've been doing this for many, many years.
Absolutely.
So when he visited Auckland first, I think about 2005 or something, and I had this good fortune to organize his visit. And I was asking whether he would like to have a big program, like big household program, a temple program. And he said, no, my way of doing things is just visit devotee, home visit individually. And I was amazed, so many people. And from there he started, he's still doing it. Just by his mercy, so many devotees are being maintained. Just like to share this very nice example, modern day example. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Absolutely. I think there's no one else to add on. We'll rest the class here. On that note, Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripasindhabheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anarkoti Vaishnavendra ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Chitra Krishna Das Prabhu ki Jai. Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Hare Bol.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.